Hello everyone. Today we'll be starting with Unit 2 Government, and it also has two chapters. Today we'll be doing chapter number 3, which is What is Government. Okay. You must have heard the word government mentioned several times. In this chapter, you will learn about what a government is and the important role it plays in our lives. What do governments do? How do they decide what to do? What is the difference between different types of governments, such as monarchies and democracies? Read more and find out. Now we'll study about what do you mean by government and what are the different types of government. Governments sought to protect the rights of unorganized workers. Detailed plan to tackle floods soon, says government. Supreme Court can have five more judges. Government fixes prices of onion, says no shortage in market. Government for revamping coal and power sector. Okay. Look at the newspaper headlines above and list the different kinds of activities that the government is reported to be doing in these newspaper headlines. So these are some of the headlines which are given, and here is saying that these are the which are the work which are done by the government, and you can list out that what are the different range of activities that a government performs. So we can see that it is saying that one, it is saying that it is going to protect the rights. Second is it is saying that it is going to tackle floods. Then it is um, suggesting that Supreme Court that it can have five more judges, and here and then, and at one place it is fixing the prices of onion, and then um, here it has declared over 1500 villages as scarcity hit villages. Okay. And then here here it's saying that it is going to revamp the coal and power sector. Okay. Now it's done. Every country needs a government to make decisions and get things done. So why do we need a government? To make decisions and get things done. These can be decisions about where to build road, schools, and how to reduce the price of onions when they get too expensive, or ways to increase the supply of electricity. The government also takes action on many social issues. For example, it has several programs to help the poor. See, like social, when we talk about social issues, for example, here it's saying help the poor, protect the rights of the unorganized workers. It does of it does other important things, such as running postal and railway services, and it also provides services such as postal services, railway services. Okay. The government also has a job of protecting the boundaries. Now it also protects the boundaries of the country. Sorry. Maintaining it and maintaining peaceful relations with other countries. It is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and have good health facilities. When there are natural disasters like the tsunami or an earthquake, it is government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. If there's a dispute or if someone has committed a crime, you find that people in courts are also part of government. Okay. Now we've seen the different activities which are done by the government, whether it is protecting the boundary, whether it's maintaining peace, whether it's providing good health facilities, postal services, protecting the rights of the people, or when we have declaring scarcity hit villages, fixing prices of goods and services. Okay, these are all the different kinds of activities which are performed by the government. Perhaps you are wondering how government manages to do all this. Now you're saying that somebody how can somebody do so many things? Like if I ask you to do this also, do that also, do this also, do this chapter also, do that chapter also, you'll say, oh my god, I'm just one person, how can I do so much? Okay. And why is it necessary for them to do so? When human beings live and work together, there needs to be some amount of organization so that decisions can be made. Now, we all are human beings. You, me, your parents, my parents, we or everybody on all the people on earth are human beings. So to have a society functions properly, we need to organize, we need some amount of organization, okay, so that it is easy to administer. If I say that if I give you 10 10 pens, if I give you 100 pens, okay, and each 10 pens of same color, okay, now you have 10 colors, and I just give you 100 pens in total. So what will you do? You might just organize the blue ones together, the orange one together, the green ones together, to just make it a more organized set of pens, okay. Some examples of institutions that are part of the government are the Supreme Court, Indian Railways, Petrol, Bharat Petroleum. These are all the institutions which are run by the government, okay. Can you list three things which the government does which have not been mentioned? Now here it's saying that these are the things that they have mentioned. Can you list other three things which are also done by the government, like declaring holidays, for example, okay. It declares holidays, it puts restrictions, like just for the lockdown, you remember how many we were not supposed to go out here and there, okay. Then during the when it was all locked down, so it cancelled the flights, from international flights from coming into India. So you can list other functions also if you want. Some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. For example, there's a need to control resources and to protect the territory of a country so people can feel secure. Governments do this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions, implementing these among the people in their territory. Now, it's very clear that rules have to be made so that people obey them, and if people obey them, and to control all, to control the resources so that people feel secure, okay. Here it is a picture of Indian Railways, and here you can see the levels. Now we'll talk about that. What are the different types of levels or levels of government? Now that you know that the government is responsible for so many different things, we know that government does this, government does that. Okay, can you think how it manages or manage to do all of these? Now I told you now how, if I tell you do this chapter also, do that chapter also, cover class 7 also, cover class 9 psychology also, cover this also, you'll say, oh my god, I'm just one person and you given me so much work. So how will government do all that work? So the government works at three different levels. So there are three different levels of working. First is the local level. Okay, first is the local level, then is the state level, and then is the national level. So there are three levels at which the government works. Okay, the local level means in your village, town, and locality. Okay, the state level would mean that it covers an entire state like Haryana, Assam, and the national level relates to the entire country. See the map. Later in the books you will read about how local level functions, and when you get into the next few classes you will learn about how government functions in a state and central level. So this is the map of India. When we talk, like, we say Punjab, we say Delhi, we say Rajasthan, we say Madhya Pradesh, we say Chhattisgarh, we say Odisha. These are the states. Okay, states here. International boundary. This is the state boundary. It's dividing between different states. Here you can see. And whereas this line, this thick black line, is dividing between countries. Like Bangladesh is a different country. Here, Myanmar is a different country. Pakistan is a different country here. Afghanistan is a different country. Tajikistan is a different country. Similarly, China, Nepal, Bhutan. Okay, these are different countries. Hmm? And here also it's China. So I hope you've understood my question. Now, if you can look at the map of our country, one question that is frequently asked, not even not even now, but even when you grow up. Okay, so you can see the line Tropic of Cancer passing through the map of India. Now, there are some states where there are some states through which it passes, so we'll try to name all the states. First is Gujarat. Can you see, does it pass through Rajasthan or not? Yes, it does pass through Rajasthan. So first is it passes through Gujarat, then it little bit passes through Rajasthan. So you'll count it in. So there are two now, two. Okay. Then it passes through Madhya Pradesh, three. Then it passes through Chhattisgarh also, because here also you can see it passes through Chhattisgarh also. Then it passes through Jharkhand also. Jharkhand also. Then it passes through West Bengal also. Okay, then it passes through Bangladesh is not our country, it's a different country, so you won't count it in ours. And then it passes through Tripura also, yes. Then it passes through Mizoram also, yes. Okay, so now we found it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. It passes through 8 Indian states. Again, we'll confirm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hmm? I'll just write here, okay? Passes through 8 Indian states. Okay, so I've written here that Tropic of Cancer passes through 8 Indian states. Fine. Here it says here also. Telangana became the 29th state on 20, on 2nd June 2014 after the reorganization state of Andhra Pradesh. Now, here is Andhra Pradesh. It's an old map, so here they've not given they've not given Telangana, but Telangana is here. This will show you the map, okay, later. Now, so when we have two, I have two more union territories, which is Jammu Kashmir 1, and Ladakh. Okay. Here is also a map of India. You can see the map of India. Sorry. This is also India, okay? This Andaman and Nicobar, this is also India. Mm, It's this part is just the enlarged portion of here, Delhi, because it's all crumbed up so badly that to focus they've shown it here. And what else I wanted to tell? Yeah. Okay. So you can see what's written in red. Red is just written the state. How many states are there? And then the small. Sorry, okay, wait. The small. You can see now. These are the different districts. I'll later tell you the difference between state, district, and more other terms are there to be cleared. But for now, you understand that these small, you can see now, these here again inside. One color is pura there. like here it's pura blue. Okay, so it's part of one, which is Gujarat. It's here pura green, parrot green sort of. Then this is part of Karnataka. This is all one part of Karnataka. Okay. Now you just remember this for now. You remember about the states and districts part, and later we'll talk about different other terms which I'll tell you. Okay. So here it's laws and government. The government makes laws, and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these. This is the only way government can function. Just like the government has the power to make decisions, similarly, it has also the power to enforce decisions. Now, how will I, you see in a class, what happens that how can so there are like 40 students in a class, and if a teacher is not there, of course everybody's going to talk, they're going to make noises and disturb other classes which are happening in adjacent to their class. So what is now, how are we supposed to manage then? That is why it is a universal thing in the school system that one monitor is made, who's supposed to make the class quiet and not disturb the adjacent classes in the absence of teachers. Just like the government, monitor is a substitute. Okay. Sorry, think just like the government, even how it functions I'm telling right now. So like now the teacher is gone, the monitor is made, because a law has been made that the monitor is there, and then it makes the that person makes the class quiet. Now, for example, there's a law that says all persons driving a motor vehicle must have a license. Any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined a large sum of money. Without these laws, without these laws, the government's power to make decisions is not of such use. Okay. Now it's given that when we are talking about that, okay, how a government functions. So the most common example here is that, suppose um the take the example of driving. Okay, so if you have to drive, you're supposed to have a driving license, and if you're caught without a license, you are made to fine. This think of an example of another law. Why do you think it is important and that people abide by this law? Okay, so different laws that are made in the country so that the society functions in a proper way. In addition to any actions that governments can take, there are also steps that people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. If a person feels, for example, that they were not hired for a job because of their religion or caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that the law is not being followed. The court can then give orders about what should be done. Now, in the previous chapters, we've discussed that how discriminations are done against a few people because how they look, how they talk, what they wear, or maybe just because of their religion, just because they are female, just because they are male, gender issues, or many other things. So, and if it also happens with any of us that we are discriminated just because we belong to this type, or belong to that type, or we are discriminated in general, then we have the right to go to the court and tell them that, okay, this law is not being abided by this person or this institute, and now I want a solution. You can go to the court and, yeah, appeal, tell them about your court you'll have to file and all everything. We'll talk about it later. Types of government. Who gives the government this power to make decisions and enforce laws? Now if everybody says that I'm going to form the government, who's going to be the one who's going to be organized? If everybody says we have like this government also, this government also, and this is that there are 10 different governments, For example, now in a class of 40 students, if I say that 40 students, they themselves stand up and say they are the monitors, they are the monitor of the class. Okay, then instead of the motive which was to make the class quiet, there's going to be more chaos now, because everybody is saying that they are the monitor. So if everybody is monitor, then who are the people who are the students who are going to be made to sit down and be asked to be quiet? The answer to this question depends on the type of government there is in the country. In a democracy, so in our country we have a democratic setup. In democracy, it is the people who give the government this power. They do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. Once elected, these persons form the government. In a democracy, the government has a power, has to explain its action and defend its decisions to the people. For example, in a class, if somebody is made a monitor, who makes them the monitor, who gives them the position? It is the teacher. But when it comes to our country and electing people to be the government, who is it that gives the power to the government? It is you, it is me, it is us, it is the citizens of India which give the power to the government to manage it and make decisions on our behalf. And it is done through elections. Every 5 year the elections are held, and we then use our right to vote and choose our government. Another form of government is monarchy. The monarch, king or queen, has the power to make decision and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision making power remains with the monarch. Unlike in a democracy, kings and queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions they take. So, monarch, now you've seen, you all might have heard stories about the kings and queens. So, previously, one is the types of government. One is a type where we choose who's going to make decisions on our behalf and etc. The other is a monarch. Okay, who monarch, that person might be a king or a queen which has the power to make decisions and run the government. And that the monarch discusses with a few people, maybe their council or something, a small group of people. But also the final, here also the final decisions will be of the monarch. He has the power to make final decisions, and here they don't even have to explain why they did it. So here or falana. So one example for in a democracy that can be given is that of India. India is a democratic country where where decisions are made by the decisions to choose government is done by the people of India, whereas in a monarch like Britain, okay, like Great Britain, they say, but it's just Britain. So Britain or England, here they have monarch, that is they have king and queen who make decisions on their part. Okay, now here are, I think, some of the questions which have to be discussed. Let me just see how many, because yeah, how many more. Now we'll come here. Discuss. Do you think it is important for people to be involved in decisions that affect them? Give two reasons for your answer. Do you think that it is important that people should be involved in, um, decisions that affect them. Which type of government would you prefer to have in place where you have where you live? So what type of out of now today we discuss two forms of government. One is the democratic, third sorry, second is the monarchy. So which form of government would you prefer in a monarch? Um which of the statements below correct is correct? Correct the statements that you think need correction. In a monarchy, the country's citizens are allowed to elect whomever they want. Whomever they want. Is it for democracy? Just remember monarch, king and queen, for example, England. And in a democracy, a king has absolute power to rule the country. No, it is in the monarchy. Here we discuss the form of government. Another form is monarchy, right? Page number 31. And then it is in a monarchy, people can raise questions about the decisions the monarch takes. No, you cannot. The king or the queen is not responsible in answering. Okay, now we'll see here. It is democratic government. India is a democracy. This achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. You know that the main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. So, what is the main power which is given to us? That is to elect a leader. So, in a sense of democracy, is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in making of the basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Democratic government in our times are usually referred to as representative democracies. In representative democracies, people do not participate directly, but instead choose a representative through an election process. I told you we have a election process where we elect our leaders through elections. We'll do this always. Decisions for the entire population. These days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what is known as universal adult franchise. So, here comes our term, which is adult universal franchise. Okay, so uh, this means all adults in the country are allowed to vote. So, what do you mean by universal adult franchise? It means that you are given the right to vote. But it is not always like this. Can you believe that there was a time when governments did not allow women and the poor to participate in elections? In their earliest forms, governments allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. Now, in the earliest forms, government for all, this meant that women, the poor, the propertyless, and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. The country was governed by the gov. The country was governed by the rules and regulations that these men made. So, what do you mean by universal adult franchise? It means that all the adults of a particular country are allowed to vote. Then it is called universal adult franchise. And back in the time, even in the even in the democratic form of government, only men were allowed to vote who owned properties and were educated. That means people who were poor or were women or they didn't have any property, or and the any uneducated group, they were not allowed to vote. In India before independence, And let's take the example of India. Um, in India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. Several people, include Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is known as universal adult franchise, that all adults have the right to vote. So now that all adults should have the right to vote, um, even in India before the independence, only a particular small group of minority was allowed to vote. Okay, so they were allowed to vote, and while the others, they were not allowed to vote. So Gandhiji, who's the father of a nation, he said that this is a unfair practice, and all the adults should be allowed to vote. Okay, let's see. Writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji said, "I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his bro day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man." Okay, so here is saying that Gandhiji in his book said that why should only a particular person be allowed to vote because he's rich, and why not the other person should be allowed to vote just because he's poor, or he's who's poor but he's working his day in and out to make his ends meet. What crime has somebody done who's poor is not allowed to vote? Okay. So similarly, on the lines of not being allowed to vote, we'll read about the votes for women. Nowhere in the world has governments willingly shared power. All over Europe and USA, women and the poor have had to fight for participation in the government. Women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War. Now we're talking about the First World War, that is in 1914 times. This movement is called the women's suffrage movement. As the term suffrage usually means, the suffrage means that is a right to vote, so it is their movement. During the war, many men were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered men's work. Many women began organizing and managing different kinds of work. When people saw this, they began to wonder why they had created so many unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. So women began to be seen as